Welcome to Time Will Tell Astrology, and today I want to discuss the new moon, which is happening today, right on the regular star, which is the fixed star in Leo. And it's a very important star because it's the Lion King, and the regular star really means the crown of the king or the heart of the king. And I just had been given information that this is a very important new moon because of the Analemma pattern of the sun. Is today is the crossover day, and it also has a holiday related to this in Roman times. So I want to get into discussing all that and how it all ties into Rome. Now, a new moon in Leo is important because it's really the two pillars in a way, because Cancer rules the moon and Leo rules the sun. So it's like the manifestation of the birth of these two main pillars, Cancer and Leo. That's what's happening today. So here's the Analemma. Now, if you follow the path, this is the path the sun makes. And it has a crossover days are August 27th and April 15th, when the sun goes into, this shorter days and longer days. It's really the crossover of the Analemma. So we're not just talking about the equinoxes. It's a little bit off the equinoxes, right? So, we always think the equinoxes are like the point where the sun starts to go into longer days or shorter days. But really, the crossover point where it's August 27th and April 15th, I believe, is really the point where the sun crosses into its shorter period, like shorter day period, which I believe is like the sun going into Hades. Okay, because it goes into darkness. There's more darkness. And if you had signed up for my mythology classes, the last one I discussed the name of the sun when it enters into Hades. Okay, so I see the Analemma as this journey, right, of going into lighter and darker aspects of the sun, which I do believe is like um, the upper world and the lower world. And the summer solstice is called the northern solstice, and the winter solstice is called the southern solstice. It's kind of hard to get your head around that, but if you really look into how the sun works and how you look at it on stellarium, you'll see that the northern cardinal point is at the summer solstice. Okay, so it's at the higher point. So anyhow, the whole point of it is this is the pattern of the sun, and I do think that there's relevance because we have this holiday that relates to this crossing over point of the sun going into the underworld, or the basically going into Hades. And because the Analemma makes a figure eight, I see the dragon or Boris is referencing this, right? The moon also makes the same pattern as of the Analemma. There's a moon Analemma, and the moon also has the terminology of draconic, okay, in it as well. So it can be the moon, but I think it's really the sun, okay? That mainly because of the strength card in the tarot. It's ruled by Leo, which is the sun, and it has the infinity symbol on top of it. So I do see it in really more referencing the sun is the Analemma. Here's the etymology of the Analemma. So it has to tie into mathematics because of the shape, but the root word is lambaning, which is to take, to seize, to take. In Sanskrit, it's labhat, which is seizes, to seize, to grasp. I take and grasp. So that's interesting because it's like the sun. I think he's the king, and he takes and he takes what he wants, right? And I do think ascension comes from the sun. So he's taking whoever he wants with him, and activates them. So I find that interesting. So the etymology, it means also to support. You can also plot your Analemma on the ground. So find a place where the sun shines at the same time of day all year round. Place a pointed rod in the ground. Every day at the same time, place another rod to mark the place where the end of the shadow of the first rod is. To simplify things, you can do this on the same date at each time each month instead of the same time every day. And at the end of the year, you will have a figure 8 plot made by rods. This is your solar Analemma curve. Instead of using rods, you can make the shadow point on large pieces of graph paper. So that's an interesting project to do. So the holiday on April 27th at this crossover point is called Volturnalia. Should be like Saturnalia, but it's like the sun turning, right? So it's the god of water, god of fountains. So because it's the god of fountains, I actually found a town in Italy with these magnificent fountains from the 1500s, and I will go into that and talk about that. So the river god who later was identified as the god of the Tiber River, okay, Volturnal River, in southern Italy, is named for him. Volturnus was the father of the goddess Juturna, who was first identified with spring in Latium near Nemiscus River, and later with the pool near the temple of Vesta in the Forum of Rome. They were both honored on this day for feasting, wine drinking, and games. So it was like a celebration. And, the wine, because of the harvest time, I guess around August 27th is when they harvest the grapes. But you got to remember, Hades is all about the grapes, right? Dionysus, it's always about drinking the wine. So now we start to see that this is just mythology relating to the pattern of the sun, right? It's going into its darker forms and going into Hades. So there's this festival with wine drinking and games because it's like the work is done, right? The sun is going shorter, so you're not working in the fields anymore. You're going into a place where you're celebrating the harvest, and you can start to have festivals and games. The April 15th date is the birth of the Sri Rama. So we got Sri in Krishna, Rama, Ram, Lamb in Hindu calendar. The festival of Cerealia, when the sun commences its journey on the Tropic of Cancer, or up the Tropic of Cancer, to bring cereal and wine to the northern hemisphere. So they're showing the other cross point. Okay, so April 15th is when it starts to come into the Tropic of Cancer. And then on August 27th, I do believe it's going into Hades. So Jesus, Dionysus, Bacchus are the sun, winemakers and bread makers, hence the bread and the wine motif. The Analemma also explains why the ancient astrologers insisted that Aries was always said to be in the middle of the heavens, known as the medium calum, which is the MC, the midheaven. In the chart of the universe, which we have said was invented by very learned men, the MC is found to be in Aries. This is because frequently, or rather always in all charts, the MC holds the principal place. And from this, we deduce the basis of the whole chart, especially since most of the planets and the luminaries, the sun and the moon, send their influence towards this sign. Okay, that was in 350 AD. So yeah, this is when the fixed, it's fixed. Okay, so in the astrology wheel that I use, it doesn't become fixed. So there's all these different formats, and I explain that in my classes, how the different wheels and different house placements that you can use to create this fixed MC midheaven or not. Okay, so there's all different ways to read your charts, but some allow it to be more naturally formed, where you just go with what the sky was really doing at the time of your birth, and then some of them they fix it. The Analemma also explains why in the Bible the woman is said to be in the heavens Revelation 12:1, a great sign appeared in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and the crown of the 12 stars of her head. Returning on the way down from the Tropic of Cancer, the other Analemma crossing occurs on August 29th, they're saying here, in Virgo. Okay, so that's interesting. So they see how they're tying the Analemma into this, revelation of the woman with the, this was happening. I think it was in 2017. People were saying it was because of Jupiter being in her belly and everything. She was giving birth, but now it's tying into the Analemma under this text. So it's all interesting. It's things to keep in mind and understand, where the power is in the year calendar and what's happening. So today is really, really special because it's the crossover point, plus it's this Volturnalia festival. So this text they're using tropic astrology and saying that it's happening in Virgo, but in the actual sky sidereal, it's happening in Leo. Volturnalia, the Roman bridge over the Volturno River, demolished during World War II, then rebuilt. Volturnalia was a Roman festival celebrated to protect and still ripening fruit from deteriorating in the hot southeast winds. During the festival, Volturnius, the god of the river and southeast wind, was worshipped. Volturnius was original deity of the rivers, later identified as the god of timber. Tibers, it is brought to Rome in the 2nd century BC. Volturno River, flowing in southern Italy, takes its name from him. Here is the connection I found. Tivoli is Latin for Tiber. So he's the god of Tiber. So this Tivoli is where these fountains. Where is Tivoli? It's right outside of Rome, and this is where the fountains are on this estate called Villa d'Este. They're explaining here the importance of the Tiber River, a Sabine city, and how this was an entrance point of how they had to cross a mountain, and there was fierce enemies up in these mountains. So it was all tied into the water nymphs who worshipped also on the banks. So it's tying into water, right? The water nymphs. And this, when I show you these fountains, it's all about the mythology that I've been talking about, like with the nymphs and with Pluto and Persephone and Neptune. It's all there in this Villa d'Este, and how it was built by a cardinal. Okay, so it was from the Christians, Catholic church, Pope. Well, he wanted to be a pope, but he got rejected, and then he built all these fountains, and it has all basically, the worshiping of the planets through the Greek mythology. So I'm just like, it's like, whoa, it's crazy. And I think this whole Tiber mythology, with there's mountains that, they have to climb the mountain. The mountain is Capricorn, okay? He's the mountain goat, and you have to climb your mountain to get over the devil, like past the devil, because he's also the devil, to go down into Aquarius. This is how your legs work. Okay, your thighs are Sagittarius, your knee is Capricorn. So when your knee's bent, it's the mountain, and then you get over the mountain and you're in the age of Aquarius, which is your shins going down to your soles of your feet. Okay, so this is how it all works, but that's what they're referencing there, is the mountain. This is the entrance to going into across the mountain, which is what's happening when the sun starts to go into its darker phase. Villa d'Este. This is the place where, disillusioned at not have being elected as Pope, Cardinal Ippolito II d'Este revived the splendor of the courts of Ferrara, Rome, and Fontainebleau, and brought the magnificence of the Villa Ariana, it's Ariadne, back to life. Governor of Tivoli from the year 1550, he soon toyed with the idea of creating a garden on the slope. of the Valley Gardena, but it was only after 1560 that the architectural and iconical aspects of the villa, designed by painter archaeologicalist architect Pira Leguio and built by the court architect Albert Galvani, became clear. The palace was decorated by the protagonist of the late Roman mannerism. Okay, so anyhow, they're saying it's because he was, upset because he didn't become the Pope, so that's why he built this. I find that hard to believe. Actually, I think it was part of their, belief systems, and they knew what the importance of the planets, and they're just trying to blame it that he was mad. That's why he built this. So it's like it makes no sense to me. In 2001, the year of 9/11, they declared it as a World Heritage Site. There's many fountains there. The grand staircase connected to the villa to the gardens. The 100 fountains, the fountains of Diana, of Ephesus, the fountain of Neptune, the fountain of the Organ, the oval fountain, the rotunda of the Cyprus. The Organ fountain was famous for the hydraulical pneumatical technology that made the water and air-powered musical fountain possible in the 16th century. It was recently cleaned and restored to again produce sound. So it's like, whoa, there's a fountain that produces sound. That is so cool. So here's some of the names. They have a Grotto de Elga and Asclepius, which is Ophiuchus, right? So this is the cardinal walk, how he walked through all these gardens. Then Asclepius, the god of medicine, now found at the Louvre. That's where they've taken that statue from here, okay, and it's at the Louvre. Then they have the Pandora is in the middle of the cardinal walk, just below the center of the villa. They also have statues of Minerva there, which we know is in New York City, looking at the Statue of Liberty. She's there across the river. Pandora and one of Minerva are now at the Capitoline Museum. Okay, so they've taken those statues out as well. So, this is a very, very famous place because it has all the mythology here. Even the Pegasus fountain. Now, Pegasus was he stamped on the ground to create a spring for the muses. Okay, so there's all this mythology all tied into all these fountains here. It's fascinating. They also have the Pomona spouting water fountain. And now remember, Pomona was the fountain that Trump invested in outside the Plaza Hotel. I did a whole video on that. And she's the goddess of the tree, right? She's the keeper of the tree. And here's some of the other fountains there. This is at the entrance. And I think it was restored in 2009, so it looks more modern now. Kind of like, like it looks like a big vessel, right? Like where the nectar would be inside the shell, which all ties into Venus. And this is Diana. And there she has she's like the bee. She's like the queen bee. And there's all the pollen sacs and they're producing like milk coming out, right? It's like breast milk all flowing into the fountain. They have another sculpture there where they have it's like a woman that's a horse or half seahorse, and then she's got her big breasts there. So it's always a lot to do with the breast milk. We're back to the milk, right? What we saw in Westworld. So it's the divine feminine. It's the mother. And of course they have Pluto and Proserpine, which is Persephone, right? This is her other name. But he's in the dark, right? He's inside. He's inside Hades, inside the dark. Which is where Jesus goes after he dies, right? He goes into Hades. So the sun goes into the darker realm. So anyhow, I just find it fascinating that this was built by a cardinal. Here is the 100 fountains. It's like a walkway with all the fountains pouring down beside you. Here we have the Fountain of Dragons, but it was changed. The casting out large streams of water with great noise. The Garden of Hesperides is mentioned in the 11th labor of Hercules. It was guarded by the sleepless dragon, and Cardinal Hippolito wanted to celebrate the labor in a large fountain on the access leading to the palace. Pope Gregory XIII visited Villa Estri in September 1572. He was impressed by the fountain and their mechanicisms, much less by their mythological references. Cardinal Epippoliti passed away a few months later, and the villa was inherited by his nephew, Cardinal Luigi, who decided to turn the sleepless dragon of the labor into the dragons of the coat of arms of Gregory the 13th. Okay, so he got his, the guy goes to visit there and then they end up changing the fountain because he didn't like it because it was tying into the mythology of Hercules going in and getting the golden apples. And I explained in my mythology class how he found out where the garden was and who actually told him the truth. And also Atlas, who's the father of the Pleiades, and how he ties into the 11th labors, because he was holding up the heavens and he was trying to get Hercules to take over the job. Okay, and then he had to get by this dragon, okay, that was guarding this garden. So, and in the garden there is a fountain, like a well full of, I guess it would be the fountain of youth. And so that's what's also important about that garden. So anyhow, it's fascinating because the 11th labor of Hercules ties into the Pleiades, because the Pleiades father is Atlas, right? So there's this whole thing where you have to know the layers of the mythology, and when you see one thing, it's what it's pulling to in the sky, right? So you have to know the stories, and that's what this is like. This game, this maze, is all about. It's all program code. Mythology is just code. It's code language, right? Until you understand what it means in the sky, but then understand what it means for you, for your soul to become free, right? And this is, you have to go through all these labors that Hercules goes through. So here's the fountain with Pegasus. The fountain depicted to Tivoli at the opposite side of Rometta. Yeah, I wanted to save Rometta fountain for last because it has huge relevance, all tying to Rome. Because Tivoli was known for its waterfalls, the theme of the fountain is a waterfall having on its top statue representing Cybele, and more in general, Tivoli. The pond surrounding the waterfall has an oval shape, hence the name given the fountain. So this is called the oval fountain. The background of the fountain is a sort of Roman nymphianism, which house statues and a walkway, a pleasant place to linger during the hottest hours of the day. A statue of Pegasus was placed at the very top of the rocks, okay, a reference to Hippocrene. The fountain where the Muses bathed, which is created by Pegasus when his hoof strikes the ground at Mount Helicon. The design of this fountain became the model of the Trito del Acquio, the name given to the main fountain and several villas. Cybele is like the Maga mother. Okay, she's like the collector of the harvest. And then I'm really amazed that they have this all tied into the Muses. Right, so I'm going to do a whole class on the Muses in my school. It's so important because they're really the path to freedom, the path to get you to immortality. Okay, this is the symbolism of the Muses. So this oval fountain is really representing immortality. In the same area here, you can see Neptune. He's inside this kind of archway. And then I circled on the right is the boat. And this is the part of the Rometta statue. And directly across from that fountain is the one in the middle here called the Rometta fountain. And I'll get in closer for you to really get a look at it. This represents Rome. So Rometta is the fountain at the top, and right beside her, to her left, is the two twins, Romulus and Remus, sucking on the she-wolf. And down below is the ship with the mask. And I want to even get a closer look at this because I believe this is the whole story with Odysseus, with the sirens trying to pull him off the boat, which is the sirens, and then across is all to do with the muses. So it's the two paths. It's like right here, right in this, it's just blowing my mind because I've been talking about this for years. And here it is, all depicted in art from the 1550s by a cardinal that had built it, a cardinal from the Roman Catholic Church. I'm just like, what? Originally, the sirens had wings, right? And then they turned them into mermaids later. But here he is, tied to the mast of the ship. Okay, so this story is ingrained in my mind because he has to put wax in his ears so he doesn't hear the sirens because they hypnotize you and take you off the boat and you get lost at sea. They take you into the depths of the sea and you basically get lost at sea, which is what this realm is all about. You don't want to get lost at sea. You either want to be in the boat or you want to be on the ground, but you don't want to be lost at sea, which is basically a bunch of emotions because water holds memory of emotions. So here's a close-up, right? So you have Romulus and Remus getting nursed by the she-wolf on the right. Then you have Rometta, which is the goddess of Rome. Then on the top left, there's like the nectar being poured out or the water being poured out of the urn. So that's kind of like, could be Aquarius. I don't know. The head's chopped off. But then you see the mask. Okay, now what do you see when you see this? When you look at this mask? To me, it looks like an obelisk. Okay? And it's the tree of life. And I've actually found links to confirm this, okay, which I'm going to do in another video, which actually ties into the First Nations people in North America. Okay? And it's fascinating. So I've always said that the Washington Monument is a tree because I believe it represents the Sigillaria tree, which is a festival on December 23rd when the sun dies. It's called Sigillaria Day, and Sigillaria is the very first tree that they ever found fossils of on the planet Earth. And it looked like this. It was a moss tree that had just a straight obelisk shape. Okay, and so I do believe it's tying into being a tree. Now I have confirmation that the tree inside the boat is represented in our history. Okay, so I'll get into that in the next video, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a segue into it. Now, I will be doing a class on stellarium, on how to use stellarium in both its formats, but I was normally planning my classes every 2 weeks, but I'm actually going out to sea. I'm going out to the Atlantic Ocean, and I will be on the ocean, so on an island. So I'm going to take a little break and connect to Mother Earth, and I will put the class on the 9th of September for that. So if you want to sign up, you can sign up on my course portal, which is Time Will Tell Astrology. And it's in the description box, how to get to that link. And that will be a fun class to really start to understand how to use stellarium. So I just wanted to let you know about that, and probably won't get another video out until after that class because I'm going away for a little while, and I'm gonna put my feet in the big blue sea. So hopefully I don't get lost at sea. I don't want to get lost at sea. I'll be attached to my mast in my boat, and I'll be hanging on. So anyhow, wish you guys a really nice long weekend next weekend, and enjoy this new moon. It's the rebirth of your manifestation, and please balance it out, because this is a huge one here between the sun and the moon, and being at Regulus, which is the star of alchemy. So you really want to be in balance, and manifest, this peace inside of you. Okay, so happy Labor Day weekend. Bye. Like and subscribe. Help this information grow wide.